Hello, everyone, and welcome to Ripple Effect TV. I'm Connie Wilshansky, and today I'm really excited to be chatting with Cathy Gray. I met Cathy a while ago, and since joining the Owners Only HQ, we've really had the opportunity to connect and get to know each other a lot better. And it's been an honor and a privilege and really inspiring to know someone who has a mission that's larger than life and is really committed to executing on it consistently and being part of that. So thank you so much for being part of our show.
Well, thank you for having me.
Hi, I'm Connie Wilshansky, founder of Schools of Excellence. The world has been shaken by this pandemic, and the effects that we're seeing in our schools are tremendous. Over the past couple of weeks, I've been on the phone with hundreds of school leaders from all over the world, dealing with the immediate aftermath of what's happening. Staff on unemployment, furloughing staff, school closures, virtual learning, parent conversations, and so much more. And yet at Schools of Excellence, we're always focused on the ripple effect. What will be the effects of this crisis on our children, on our families, and on our schools? We've already seen a 65% increase in child abuse, over 80% increase in domestic violence and abuse, and the numbers are only climbing. What's happening now will go far beyond the immediate crisis, and that is why we have to prepare now. And so that's why I've created the Schools in Crisis interview series, which is a 5-day online virtual series where I'm interviewing industry experts and having candid conversations with them about the effects that will be in our schools on the social, emotional, mental, physical, and financial health of you, your families, your staff, the children, and the overall culture in your school. We go live on May 10th, and so you could click the link below to sign up. Thank you, and I look forward to having you join us.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, and just what you do now.
So my name is Cathy Gray. I'm from New Kent, Virginia, which is about 30 miles east of Richmond, Virginia. I was a former special education teacher about 16 years ago. I opened my first center for my youngest daughter, who's now 16. Works in our business. I have 5 locations and opening my 6th in April. I guess so my vision and my mission is really to empower my people that work for me to be the best versions of themselves, which is maybe a little bit different than most business owners. And sometimes when I say that to people, they kind of look at me really weird. So yes, we have to make money to pay the bills and to pay everyone, but at the end of the day, it's really about the people.
I love that. I love that. So I'd love to start off with, you've been doing this for over a decade. What is something that you're really proud of your centers?
I think I'm most proud of, I think the way that I've learned to lead with empathy. I think for so long, I looked at this as a business and my focus was always, of course, my parents and the children that we serve. But over the past few years, it's become much greater than that for me as I watch young women coming out of high school with really no direction or college. They've spent all this money on college and now they don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And so I think probably being able to lead them, provide them with an income, but also working with them to get them to really focus on what they want to be, where they want to go, their goals. Whether they stay with me or not, that's okay, as long as they're working towards being the best version of themselves.
I love that. I love that. And it's really something to be proud of because it's hard to stay committed to something that's so great and hard to execute on, really hard to deliver. So I'd love to ask you about, because over the last couple months and you've really been implementing different strategies and adopting, like up-leveling your mindset and just the way you're approaching things, I'd love for you to share any specific system or strategy or something that you really leaned into that as a result of leaning into that and making that hard choice, you are prouder of who you are. You're prouder of the product that you're really developing in your school.
I'd have to say that before I met you, well, actually, I met you a long time ago. You probably didn't know that I met you. So I've been following you for a long time. But I really had the first pillar of your, the daily operations and the systems in my school were already operating, but I knew that I was missing something and I couldn't figure out what it was. I think it was something inside of me. And I think when I came on board with you, you really showed me and the team, because it's not just you, it's our whole, it's the whole piece.
Yeah.
How to align really my vision and mission into my schools, and how to build that trust, how to lead with empathy, I think is huge. I think it's huge for any business owner to really see that this isn't just staff, these are people. And I think you've taught me that. And I continue to grow in those parts, learning how to set standards and hold people accountable, but still maintain that we're people.
Yes. Oh my God. I love that, because so many times, well, not so many times, I think this is still a belief system in our industry, that if you hold someone accountable, you need to be obnoxious, or you need to be a jerk, or you need to be mean, or whatever it is. And then if you're kind and you're empathetic and you're understanding, well, that means that everyone will step all over you. And it's kind of like either or in the path, when really leading with empathy and accountability can coexist together. Is it easy to do? Absolutely not. Because like you were just saying, like, you got to dig deep. And it's so hard, because it's so much easier to just go onto Google, find some hacks and tips and tricks, when really the answer is here. And that's the hardest part. Like, it's really the hardest part of leading. So I'd love for you to share, how have you evolved as a leader? Like, you're talking a lot how you're leading more with empathy, but I truly believe in the ripple effect. Like, the show is called The Ripple Effect. And when we change, we create an effect on everybody else. And so as you have gone through this journey and evolved, how have you seen the ripple effect really taking place in your centers, in your life?
In so many ways.
Share with us.
So many ways. I think if you go back to, your pillars,
yeah,
and looking at like the daily operations, your system, because you have scripts and we have these conversations, I was able to tweak that. So once I could tweak that and really get that solid, so having enough staff, say, being fully staffed, then you're not worrying about that. Then you're really honing in on, okay, now I have to tell them what I expect.
Yeah.
And you taught me that, making sure that you're communicating your standards and how you're going to hold them accountable, but at the same time supporting them. I know that sounds kind of crazy, but going into classrooms and observing and modeling for them, having those one-on-ones with them, where you can really talk about not just work goals, but personal goals. Understanding that, oh my gosh, this girl is taking a bus from, and we live in a rural area, she's taking a bus and then walking 2 miles to work. Well, hold on. Let's see if we can get somebody to pick her up on the way. We can't go all the way to her house, but we can pick her up along the way. Really honing in on supporting people, because everybody struggles. And so if we can be that one person that says, hey, I care about you and I want you here, and going that extra mile, I think.
Literally the extra mile.
Or two.
Right.
I think people then invest in you. And if they're investing in you, then they're going to invest in the children that you serve. And then they become invested with those families. So it is a ripple effect.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think I missed that mark. I didn't see that for a long time. And I knew there was something missing. I could throw them $50 cash. I could do this and I could have these nice parties for them. But at the end of the day, it was every day. How do I show up and support you?
Okay, I'm chills all over, so I need to calm that part of me. But it's what's so beautiful about what you're sharing also is we don't find out about a 2-mile walk when we pop our head in and we're like, hey, everything okay? Everybody good? Okay, great. And then we jump into the next classroom and then we do this, or we're running around and we're going crazy. Like we don't get to have the depth of conversation when we're consistently in survival and trying to, catch our breath. So I love what you said is like, when we deal with this, then something amazing happens after, where we're taking the time for one-on-ones. We're taking the time for the quality of the conversation. The ripple effect just continues to evolve and evolve and evolve and makes the quality of your school so much better. So I love that. I love that I still get chills when I hear stories like that. It means that I'm still very connected to everything. So I'm grateful whenever that happens, because it means that I'm excited about it. So I'd love to do some live coaching, because it's one of the things that bring me joy, kind of helping you unpack a challenge or whatever it is. So I'd love to ask you to bring to the table what do you want to unpack, and we'll do it here live.
So although I have grown into leading with empathy and really aligned my vision and mission, I'm still working with my directors on that. And as you know, honey, that, I have 2 very young directors, and then I have 2, I'll say, middle-aged directors, all of them fairly new to me, because over the last few years, I have given up being a director, and my regional director was a director and has moved into, anyway. And so it's funny, because you would think the younger girls would have more empathy, but they're harder. They expect more, and they are less tolerant. And so really trying to teach them, or try to align, or I don't even know if align is the right word, but getting them to understand or to buy into my mission, my vision. I'm having a hard time with that. I see, if somebody calls in and I see their comment and I'm like, oh.
Like how they responded. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm gonna actually dive to my whiteboard. That's my favorite place to hang out, because I want to unpack this for you and then for everyone that's watching, because this isn't just a question around, how do I get buy-in from my directors? Because what's happening here is a lot of younger people, or veterans, there's a prove and perform mindset or concept, where because they're in this position of leadership and they know that you're holding them accountable to certain things, like the standards of like teachers have to come on time, or they need to have their curriculum baskets ready, or their classroom needs to have a certain standard of cleanliness. So the leaders know they have to perform. They are going to be accountable to certain metrics. Now, they are uncomfortable with having consistent conversation with the teacher around, well, tell me why you're struggling with creating the curriculum basket, or where are some of the roadblocks in coming on time, or whatever it is. It's a lot easier to come from a top-down approach of like, you have to perform, you have to be here, whatever it is. And the reason for that is because they're coming from the place of proving. I need to prove to Cathy that I can do this. And I need to prove to myself that I am competent to do this job. So before I continue, tell me what you're taking from this little piece here.
So I do think that right there is, they have said to me, I do not want to disappoint you. And my response is always, you will never disappoint me as long as you're trying.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but now, okay, you're not going to disappoint me, but how do I move them? So one of my directors said the other day, I'm doing all of that gratitude stuff because, that's what you told us to do. And I'm trying to put on my niceness.
Yes. Okay.
But Oh my gosh, you should want to be nice.
Yes. So I'm actually going to dial in on that gratitude piece because I think this is like the best place to get started in, okay? So for everyone that's watching and listening, 98% of directors have been teachers before. And so one of the first things that I always like to tackle on with a director when they're struggling with relationships and when they say things like, I do gratitude, or I'm doing all of that, what they're telling you is gratitude is a task on their to-do list. It is not part of their being and part of who they are and a practice of like, yes, I am a great, it's not part of their identity yet. It's part of a task that lives here that I have to do to collect my paycheck at the end of the week. No, you have to do paperwork and childcare CRM and all of that kind of stuff to get you. Gratitude is who you are and your being. So the first thing I always suggest when you're talking to a director who was a teacher before is say, if you were a toddler teacher, let's say, what was something that brought you joy in the 2-year-old classroom? And most teachers will say things like, well, you know, when the 2-year-old drinks from the cup for the first time and doesn't wet his pants because he actually makes it, you know, he drinks properly, doesn't get everywhere. When the 2.5-year-old puts his coat on without any help. When the 3-year-old makes it to the bathroom on time and doesn't pee on the floor. All of these things are little, but they bring so much joy to the teacher because she's teaching them that skill. For a 4-year-old teacher, you know, when the kid finally recognizes the letters in his name, so much joy because they're committed to the child learning this. So what needs to happen with the director, that flip that needs to happen in their mindset is, what part of the teacher's success brings them joy? So if they see a teacher come on time for 5 full days and she's a teacher that struggles, does that bring them joy? Or are they like, finally? What does it bring them joy? Does it bring them joy when they see a teacher who's a toddler teacher who's new and she's able to bring the kids from outside to inside and there's no chaos, right? Everyone made it there. Does that bring her joy? Does that light her up? Because when we can identify, when the director can identify her 3 things that bring her joy in the staff, it's so much easier for her to connect with them because she's invested in them winning, not in her performing or proving. She's not invested in this. She's invested in them winning.
Well, that makes sense.
Right? So now gratitude is no longer a task. So how do you feel about having this conversation with them?
I love that.
Awesome.
And so I guess moving along, like I have had conversations, but with them, like, hey, I saw your response to this. How would you feel if you called me, or I said, you know, last week you called me and you had a family emergency. How would you feel if I responded like this? How did I respond? And clearly that didn't work because they can't see outside of it. But when you bring it to the table like that, like what makes you happy, I think it will really define something for them, because if those things aren't driving them, then this probably isn't where they need to be.
Yes. Not everyone gets joy from seeing other people succeed. But if you're a leader, you have to find joy in that because that's so much of your job, right? Now, the other thing I would do for you and for whoever's watching who's really struggling with directors who are having a hard time in their response because they're being curt or whatever it is. So this is part of like general training with the directors is, so they do this with teachers a lot, where I know a lot of directors will do this with teacher training, where they'll give scenarios in the classroom at a teacher workshop, and they'll say, okay, when little Sam throws the block across the room to John, what are 3 ways that you can respond, right? And give 3 appropriate responses. So when they're not in the thick of it, they're like, oh, I can calmly walk over and do this, or I can go do this. And what it's doing is it creates neural pathways in their brain. So when something like that happens, because we all know these things happen, they're not going to go with their internal response, which is, oh my God, what did you do? And freaking out, but they're going to go, oh, I learned about that. So with directors, very similar. Let's take some common scenarios that you have been cringed by the way they responded and bring it up in a director meeting. So whether that's your weekly leadership meeting or whatever it is, and say, okay, guys, we are going to do like a focus group now. We're going to create some FAQ responses. So just like every website has FAQs, like these are the most frequently asked questions. So when anyone asks a question, anyone on the team can answer. Well, when teachers ask these frequently asked questions, how should we respond as creative critters? How does our company respond to teachers like this?
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
So again, these two things make a massive difference in the door that we're choosing to come into.
Thank you. I love that.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm sure this will be helpful for many other people as well. So I'd love to end off with two more questions, which is, one, what makes you really excited about school leadership now?
And I don't want to be cliche, but it's watching people succeed and be happy and working so hard to be the best version of themselves brings me so much happiness. It just does.
Yeah. And I know it for real to be true. You're not speaking in cliche, because I know your mission and I know who you are. And I think we need more people to be part of that mission and that journey, because then our schools will really be forever transformed, which means the children that we're raising as the next generation of leaders will be very different than who we are today. So Cathy, what is your ripple effect challenge for all the leaders, executive managers, whoever's watching this right now? What is your challenge for everyone?
I think first and foremost, like my journey's been, get those systems in place, get your systems, get all of that in place. Take a deep breath and really look, once you get that, and really look at your vision and mission and see how you want that to unfold and go for it. But I think until you get to that place, you'll never feel, I think as leaders, it's really hard to feel successful until you get to that place and you can sit back and go, oh my gosh, look at her. Oh my gosh, look at him. Oh my gosh, look at these girls just knocking it out of the park. And really seeing that your vision is unfolding.
I love that. I love that. Thank you, Cathy. Thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you for sharing your story. It's great connecting.
Thank you for having me. See ya.
If you like this video, make sure to subscribe using the bell so that you get notifications when we release videos twice a week.